Be strong.
I guess you boys realise how severe the demands are, both when you're running and then on your body after. So I guess the direction we want to go is, well, how can we do this better next time? And how can we actually prepare you adequately for something like this again? And judging from you blokes, I think you've got a few tips that you'd probably like to give people. So I think we should table or start the discussion here before we wrap up as to how you could actually do this better next time.
Yeah, certainly don't do it off no preparation. That's probably tip number one. I guess you need the training volume behind you because 21 kilometres is, for most people, going to be around that 2 hour mark, potentially a bit quicker, potentially a bit slower. And unless you've exercised or run for 2 hours in one go, the body is probably not prepared for that. So I think you need to, as we've spoken about before, you can't just go from 0 to 100. You need to slowly build up. And I think that's probably going to take, in my opinion, and in an ideal world, you'd probably take longer, but I think you need a minimum of like 8 weeks.
Yep.
To build up. I think you could do it in 8 weeks, but certainly not in the week and a half that myself and Damo had. But I think, yeah, if you can slowly build up just the amount of Ks you run per week, and then within your session as well, that'll just have your body a bit better prepared for what's to come.
Yeah, I think having a little bit of an existing base, doing some sort of like at least 1 or 2, 4 or 5K runs a week certainly helped, because my weekly volume sort of around half the amount that you got to do. But yes, I think you would need to do at least like build your volume up, as Sean said. I think if you've got an existing base, you could probably do it in like a month to 6 weeks. You just need to build up to, I reckon you need to run at least 15 Ks as your longest warm-up run or like preparation run, just so that your body's accustomed with running that distance. I think, yeah, tripling my weekly running load in one session certainly wasn't helpful. So yeah, if you can build up, slowly progress that and get the volume there, I think you'd be fine. If you're starting from scratch, as Shawnee said, you probably need about that 8 weeks. If you've got something in the tank, a bit more of a shorter time frame could be used just to build up to that longer distance.
Yeah, another sort of strategy I used, because I knew that I didn't want to have to run too much in the lead up. I had my last running session 7 days before the half marathon, was just jumping on the bike for an hour at a time, because I knew that running time was going to be around 2 hours, but I didn't want to cook myself either. But I think even just getting, the heart and the lungs used to having to work for such a prolonged duration, that can help as well. And then you obviously don't have the running loads through the joints if you're just on a bike or something like that. But that's something you can use to supplement your running as well. It's not going to make up for it, obviously, because you're not having those loads go through your body, but it's just another tool you can use as well.
Yeah, I think one people probably don't think about as well is like your running gear or equipment. Make sure that you've got good shoes, right shorts. Like you can end up with some bad chafe. Not that it happened to me, but I know that a lot of people that run those longer distance, if you haven't got the right pair of jocks on or shorts, it can be pretty painful. And it's the same with shoes. So I know you had a pretty bad blister, didn't you, Shawnee?
Yeah, I did. It was about the size of a 10-cent coin, I reckon. So,
oh no!
just on the side of the foot, just underneath my big toe. So, but it's all right. It doesn't hurt or anything. It was just, just big.
All right. So to finish off, boys, I want to talk about briefly, I guess, how to plan one of these programs and what you should look at going forward. Because like last year, we did a couple of podcast episodes about aerobic training and building a base and and all that sort of stuff for team sport athletes probably. So, AFL, soccer, rugby codes, everything along those lines. But what about for a continuous runner? So you blokes obviously had a bit of a baptism of fire with running one of those events. So how, I guess, should you go about planning a program, and what are the main components you need going forward to run basically anything from half marathon upwards? Because I think you blokes have proven that you'd probably get away with doing 10K. Obviously, you don't recommend that. But what about for anybody above 21 kilometres?
I think that, well, the obvious one's volume, which everyone's going to probably program into their training for that. So you've got to do some form of long continuous running. If you
volume is, so you're talking about volume is the amount of Ks done per week. That's what volume it means.
Yeah. So, and you, like I said, if you want to do the half, you'd want to be doing sort of like 10K runs regularly and then pushing up into that sort of 15-kilometre territory in your preparation. I think the one that people would probably not think of, though, so everyone, if you're just Joe Blow following, Couch to 5K or 10K or whatever, the app would be that you would be doing those long continuous runs and progressively building up. But if you want to do better at one of those events, you'd also need to do some interval-based stuff so that you can sort of train your body to run at those higher intensities and adapt to that. And then when you go a bit slower, you're obviously performing a bit more optimally. I would be looking at sort of probably have 1 to 2 longish runs per week, and then depending on how many times you're training per week, and then one session per week where you're looking at some shorter, faster stuff, whether it be starting off with some fartlek running or some short intervals, that sort of stuff. That's how I would break down training for it, so that I'm getting my volume in, but then I'm also getting some intensity so that I'm improving my speed per kilometre. I reckon, Shawnee, if you and I had our time again and we had like that 6 to 8 week block, we could quite easily drop that running time that we've got. So around that sort of 1:55 to 2 hours, I think we could get closer to sort of, running sub 5-minute kilometres pretty comfortably.
Yeah, because I think the thing that we spoke about beforehand was trying not to go too hard out of the blocks too early, and I think we were pretty comfortable sitting around that just above that 5-minute mark. And if we were to hold that for 20Ks, we'd be looking at an hour 40 maybe, which is cutting 20 minutes off is quite a lot. So I think that to get that and breaking your sessions up into sort of smaller chunks, as Damo said with the intervals, you can still do a similar distance that you would for your long distance run. Like say you do a 10, 12 kilometre run, you could just break that up into sort of longer intervals and do, 2-3 kilometres at a time, and try and do that a little bit harder, and then break that up with like an easy run in between. Like you might do 2Ks hard or 1K easy, for example, until you get to 12 kilometres. So, and use that little 1 kilometre easy effort as like your little active recovery type thing, and sort of building that intensity from there. But I think the main one, if you're just trying to get it done, the main one is going to be the volume and the Ks in the legs.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Is there any, so if we want to do like a basic sort of prescription, you're looking at running 3 to 4 times a week, it's probably where you want to be. As Sean and Dano said, you want a mix of that long, continuous volume-based work and then some faster stuff as well. That's probably most effective. Where does strength training fit into that, do you think? Is that still something you'd need to do, some regular strength-based work?
Yeah, I think if you're coming from nothing, I would suggest that you work on like muscular endurance type training. So a high number of reps, lower volumes, and build that capacity for your muscles to have those repeated efforts. You could transition into the strength type training as well, but I think that would be the most valuable for you, because I think that's where sort of it probably happened to us, was that just endurance in the muscles, and because we didn't have the Ks in the legs, we're not used to it. So if you could sort of complement your weight training. So focusing on your lower body exercises predominantly. So, step ups, squats, deadlifts, some lateral movements as well. I think that certainly we had a few hip problems. I think strengthening up around the hips and the glutes would be super important as well. But certainly my prescription would be looking at that more endurance-based prescription of training. So that sort of 12, 15 plus reps with lower weights just to build that muscular endurance.
Yeah, and strength training, it plays a role. I think there's a lot of research that's shown that it improves your running economy, which is essentially just your efficiency and your sort of with each step, how much energy you're using, more or less. So it does play a big role there, and it certainly helps. And it's certainly something that, resistance training is recommended for all runners, no matter how far you run. It's definitely not something you should ignore.
Yeah, that's very good. And I think to finish off with, what about any sort of plyometrics or jumping based stuff? Is that a bridge too far, or is there room for that too?
No, I think like just Shawnee touched on there, like running economy and your gait and everything, it's very dependent on, especially like we talk about elasticity in the ankle joint when it comes to running, and jumping is going to help with that in terms of building the tendon stiffness and elasticity that's important for running. So one of the best ways to train that is plyometrics. So again, you just got to be smart with your dosage of that, because if you're getting high volumes through the tendons and joints already, loading up with plyometrics as well. So just making sure that your dosages of that are correct and fits in with your running schedule, but certainly something that you would program as well.
Yeah, I think running itself is almost a plyometric as well. So you're going to get a little bit of that just through running, but doing some plyometric type exercises away from that is always going to be of benefit as well. But as Damo mentioned, you don't want to overdo it, because that's when you start to have those sort of overuse injuries in the tendons, and particularly the Achilles. It's a big one with runners.
Yeah, I think that's very important to come back to, is that if you're starting from scratch listening to this and you're doing maybe like one gym session a week or none, and you haven't done any running, you need to be very smart about how you're going to implement that. So, going from 0 running sessions to 3 in a week's a big jump. Then if you're going to add on 2 strength sessions as well, you need to be very careful of how you're loading that or how you're implementing that. So it might be a slow transition. And that's where that sort of 8 to 12 weeks to implement something like that's quite useful, because you can slowly phase in and build up your workload. Not to say that you couldn't do 5 sessions in your first week, but you would be looking at doing very light loads in your strength training. If you think you can do 20 squats with 20 kilos comfortably, drop it down to 10 kilos and look after your body and slowly build up that ability to lift that load. And then in terms of running as well, if you can do 5Ks running, just drop it back down, maybe do that, but do, as Shawnee said, you might do 2 2K runs and a 1K run to get your volume there, and just slowly build up.
Sounds pretty good, boys. Sounds like it's decent advice. So I think we might wrap it up there, that you've covered everything, and it sounds like you boys need some sort of ice bath to get you through the rest of the week. So well done. Congratulations on completing it, and congrats on doing something worthwhile and a great cause that you contributed to. So well done to both of you.